Is your sense, our sense of the world, based on the idea that ultimately Britain enjoys the protection of America? If it is, you may need to think again. China has launched a new type of missile which has been described as a game changer with its ability to hit American targets potentially at will. We know this thanks to a report over the weekend which confirmed a test flight in August of a traditional ballistic missile which then deployed a new type of hypersonic low-altitude warhead. Such a hypersonic glide vehicle would be able to evade America's missile defense shield and hit targets almost without warning. Let's speak to Dr. Nikolai Sokov, a former Russian diplomat and now at the Vienna Center for Disarmament and Non-Proliferation. Doctor, thanks so much for your time. How much of a game changer is this missile?
Well, it's not yet. It will become a game changer once a significant number of these missiles with this warhead are deployed, but not yet.
What does it potentially do then that's so remarkable?
Well, the remarkable thing about that missile is the simple fact that it can approach the United States from almost any direction. And the most important thing is that it can evade early warning systems and the missile defense systems that the United States all look north. Fundamentally, it's the same.
Towards the Arctic.
Yes, yes. Well, fundamentally, it's the same system, or quite similar to the system that Russia has begun to deploy as well. The system known as Avangard, that can maneuver with hypersonic speed and thus evade missile defense. Most likely by the end of this year, actually Russia will begin to test a new strategic missile, Sarmat, that will be also able to reach the United States from any direction. I think it's important, simpler.
Yeah, that puts it very simply. What then, if anything, can America do about this?
Well, almost nothing, actually.
Wow.
The only way to deal with that capability is to deploy missile defense all around the U.S. territory.
Which is, given the landmass, the size of the landmass we're talking about, is probably a physical, if not financial, impossibility.
Well, it's financial impossibility, I would say. Well, but let us look at the situation from the Chinese side and from the Russian side as well, so not just the US side. Yeah. The concern is in Russia and China is that sometime in the future, maybe not tomorrow, but maybe 15 years from now, 20 years from now, the United States will finally be able to create a missile defense that will make the second strike by Russia and China impossible. So they try to build systems that can penetrate such missile defenses.
So in that context, what you're saying is that what the Chinese may be on the brink of doing, and the Russians too, actually rebalances détente and makes sure that there is still mutually assured destruction.
Well, I would not use the word détente, of course. So it's about mutual deterrence. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Fundamentally, both the Russians and the Chinese are informed by the same view of missile defense that was developed back in the 60s by Robert McNamara, perhaps the most famous U.S. Secretary of Defense. It took Americans then several years to convince the Soviets to accept that view, namely that unlimited missile defense is likely to spur the arms race. Yes, and the Soviets were so convinced by that they continued to adhere to the same view for the next 25 years. Yes, and then Russia adopted the same attitude. China adheres to that view as well.
Doctor,
the United States, however, back in the early 80s, changed the view to what used to be the Soviet view that defense is good.
And then that's when we got Ronald Reagan's Star Wars and all the rest of it.
Yes, exactly.
Doctor,
during START 1, 2.
Yeah, sorry, just we haven't got very long. I'm just wondering, how is it that the Chinese have been able to pursue this relatively in secret And why, for those of us like me who've just grown up with this idea of that the Americans will just lead the arms race because they've got the scientific and the financial wherewithal?
Well, that's actually no longer the case.
How have they fallen so far behind?
Well, let's put it like that. The United States is not exactly far behind, simply because the United States never tried to pursue that particular capability. That's point number one. Point number two, development is done, on the ground in laboratories. You cannot really see that unless you got spies or unless the party that develops a weapon announces it. Russia actually does announce these programs, so we know. Otherwise, you only learn about these weapon systems after the first test. Yes, and that's exactly what happened with the new Chinese missile. It's the same situation that we faced during the Cold War when we all learned about Soviet weapons only after the first test.
Doctor, in a word, does this Chinese missile test make the world a safer or more dangerous place, in your opinion?
Well, it leaves the world the same as before in terms of danger. What we see, however, that's part of a longer trend. There is a lower predictability, and there are fewer actually limits on modernization and on deployment of new weapons. Yes, and that's really what worries me. We enter the world which is perhaps not characterized by chaos, but nonetheless, it's really hard to say what Chinese capability might be 10, 15, 20 years from now. Same about the Russian capability, although we know somewhat more. Yes, and quite similar about the U.S. capabilities, although, of course, we know even more about U.S. capability. Nonetheless, there are no limits on almost anything. The treaty that the United States and Russia still have, the New START, has only quite actually narrow limits, not on so many weapons.
Yes.
Yes, and everything outside these bounds is like almost unlimited. Yes, you can do whatever you want. Yes, and that really worries me because the less predictability or the less stable the situation is.
That sounds like a chilling but very wise rule. Dr. Sokov, thanks so much for your time. Thanks very much.